In this tutorial, we're going to talk about adding layers and everything that you can control using these layers up here at the top of PVP. Now, there's a chance that your window looks like this, and the first thing we're going to do is actually expand our layer details options so that we can see everything that we can control with the layer strip. There's two different ways to do this, the first of which is to just click the little drop down triangle and that will reveal the list as well. Or the second option is you can actually just click and drag right here to drag the entire window down and reveal the entire layer strip. Now that you can see all of the settings, we'll go through exactly what each of these do and how to add more layer strips to the program. So you may remember from a previous tutorial that we chose our target set right here in this layer strip to determine which target set the media would play back to when we triggered it. So as soon as we trigger it, then we're triggering that media to this target set. So if you mouse over the preview at the top of the layer strip, it gives you a couple different options. The first of which on the right hand side is this eyeball, and this is actually going to mute the layer. So it's not actually going to clear the media is still going to play back, but you won't see it on your output as it has muted or hidden that layer. On the left hand side you have an audio mute, so it's not again going to actually stop the audio, but it would mute it so that you don't hear it on the output, and then it would bring it back when you have those lines with the speaker as well. In the middle, you have a layer clear button, so if you click that, that is actually going to clear the layer, which means that the media will stop playing and your layer will be in black. Just below that, you have your layer transport controls. On the left-hand side, you have an option that's going to skip backwards for 15 seconds. You've got play pause here in the middle. You can skip forward 15 seconds. And then the last option here is go to currently 10 seconds from the end. But if you right-click on this control, you can actually select how far from the end that button will take you. It can either take you directly to the end, or 10, 30, 60, or 90 seconds from the end. So this is a very quick way to be able to queue up a video and then watch the last perhaps 30 seconds of the video just to confirm that audio is correct and to confirm what the end of the video does. Below the transport controls is the layer preset option. We're going to cover this in depth later on in another tutorial, but this gives you the ability to save all of your layer selections as a preset so that you can apply it to other layers. Just below that is the target set selection, and that's where you can change the target set that this layer is going to play out on. Below that is blend modes, which we'll also discuss in another tutorial. And then you have the opacity of the overall layer. So if we trigger some media to this layer and then we can change the opacity, then you'll see here on the master that gets a lot more transparent as we go down, or we can bring it back up to 100% where it's fully opaque there. Below opacity is the effects preset, and again, this is another one that we'll cover in another tutorial, but this gives you the ability to save the selection of effects that you have on this layer strip as a preset that you can then apply to other layer strips as well. Below the effects preset is the effects build duration. This is going to be the duration for any effects that you bring in or take out of a layer, how long it's going to take for those effects to complete that action. Just below that is where you actually add your effects. So you can click here on this button and then select an effect, and that effect will be added to the layer, and then you can continue to add more as you click that plus button. And finally, below effects, you have the transition. So this is the transition for this individual layer, and you can choose your transition here, and then anything that you trigger to that layer will trigger with that transition. So that's a quick overview of all of your settings for your layers, and the next step is going to be to just add more layers into the project. You can add a good number of layers to the project, and then you can also use those layers again to target different target sets and add different effects and play out to different target sets all at the same time. In order to do that, you're going to click this little plus button just to the top left of layer 1, and as you do that, that's going to add more layers to the project. So we'll go ahead and just add 5 layers here, and then again you can select different target sets for each layer, and those will play out to those different locations. You can then trigger media to those individual layers, and you can play all of that back and see it in that master strip there. Now, these layers are actually stacked as well, so that means that layer 1 is on the bottom, layer 2 above it, layer 3 above that, and so forth as you go through any number of layers that you have added. This allows things like opacity to be able to interact with the layers below it, so you'll notice as I lower my opacity, I'm seeing underneath it the videos that are playing back underneath that opacity change. This will also be evident in things like blend modes, again, that we'll talk about later, where you can actually get these layers to kind of interact with each other and create some pretty cool effects. So you may also notice that on the right-hand side of the program, I had this sidebar, which looks very similar to a layer strip, but is a little bit different. If you did not have this sidebar viewable, then you can reveal it by clicking this button in the top right corner that denotes that the sidebar is there. So if your view looked like this, you can click on this button here and you'll get the sidebar. The sidebar is very similar to the layer strip, as you'll see all of those settings for the layer strip available in the sidebar, and they're already expanded so that you don't have to click on a button over here like the transitions to see the transitions. They're just already here available for you to choose which transition you want to use and affect all of those settings without having to then click on another setting to get to those changes. One great keyboard shortcut in regards to the layers in the sidebar is perhaps you wanted this master preview to be a little bit bigger. You can bring it up in the sidebar over here, but then as soon as you click on a different layer, that's going to disappear. So if you hold down the Option key on your keyboard and then click on a layer strip, it's actually going to lock that layer strip to the sidebar so that as you click around on different layers, as you see me doing here, it's going to keep the sidebar as what you option clicked on. Now, if you option click again, that's going to unfreeze it, and then you'll be able to change depending on the layer you select. It will change the sidebar to reflect the settings for that layer. Again, if you option click on a layer, that's going to lock it, and then as you click on the different layers on your layer strips, the sidebar is going to stay with the selection that you option clicked. So that's it for the basics of using layers in PvP. For more information and more tutorials, you can go to renewedvision.com and look at all of the PVP3 tutorials available, and also check out the knowledge base for more information.